Do you really want to sit back all your life and let this ruling class rule? I know I don't. So we need leaders. We need...
So you need more people in this party to get into offices.
What do you major in?
Political offices.
I have an associate's in business administration and a certificate in banking and finance.
Okay.
Nothing too fancy.
That's what's controlling the world, is banking and finance.
Banking and finance. And that's what we're trying to tame. That's who's caused the financial depression. Some people say government regulation has caused the depression. Well, yeah, it's government regulation that Wall Street put in. So, essentially, Wall Street is the enemy. You have to tame finance capital, finance oligarchs. Their priorities are not conducive with ours. So, tame the beast, then get out of it, using that Federal Reserve. Go ahead.
I just wondered if you talked about Wall Street having a lot of control over the government.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered how much control you think they have over the media, and if you think that they're behind this idea of tighten your belt and live with less and use less energy and just basically like cutting your own self down to nothing.
They absolutely are. Yeah, absolutely. The mainstream media is largely Wall Street media. You know.
Everything's Wall Street.
Yeah. World News Tonight with Brian Williams, or not Brian Williams anymore, for a long time. But Nightly News, whatever. All these different media. Mainstream media programs, they are absolutely Wall Street run, and they do promote this notion of sacrifice, living with less, cutting your pollution. And notice, we are not, we could be labeled as a leftist, progressive movement here, sure. But notice we are not obsessed with global warming, climate change, these Malthusian policies. It comes from Malthus. Malthus was a British ideologue in the 19th century, and it comes from him, pretty much. And it's this notion that the world is always overpopulated, and your pollution and your progress is destroying Mother Earth. Well, sorry, human beings come first. Polar bears can come second. And by the way, you don't need to enforce genocide to create solutions for something like global warming. People say you got to deindustrialize. Well, that's your last step. Your first step is not to deindustrialize, because that's what we have. We have the fossil fuels, we have the stuff that we have. Your first step, that's your last step. Your first step is to nationalize the Federal Reserve, put trillions and trillions and trillions, however much it takes, into new energy systems, new technologies that are better and more conducive and more powerful. Then, once you get that in place and working and making sure it's good and working for people, then you can do away with the nasty pollution stuff. You don't need to kill people in order to get rid of something like global warming, if it's true. I don't really buy into it. Whatever.
They're shucking it in India now, though.
Excuse me?
Al Gore is now in India shucking it in.
Oh, I believe it, yeah.
I think he said by now we were supposed to have all been under a couple of sheets of ice, I think, if his convenient truth was to be true.
Absolutely. And these people that spout this global warming stuff and tell us that we need to lower our standard of living and not use as much energy. Well, these are the same people that fly around in jets, have million-dollar mansions. Barack Obama, he gets up and says, oh, well, we can't develop Africa. We can't let them have air conditioning and whatnot. That'll boil the world over. Well, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I'll tell you something else you're going to have to consider if you're going to run in 10 years. I would say that you need to cut your vocabulary of this whole program down to about 80 words and put it in a video game.
Yeah, I was warned by Brandon. Dumb it down as much as you can, bro.
Because schools, the standards of education in public school systems and private school systems are way, way, way down. And the dumbing down of America has been successful.
Sure.
And most of the people in 10 years, even now, are not going to understand or care about half of what you said.
I would agree.
So that's an area of education that I don't know what we do about it, but we've lost in many, many areas. That's a major one.
That's very true.
I'm with her. Most people are, this is way over their head.
Yeah, I realize that. It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
That's why we're glad to have such a smart crew with us.
Yeah, that's why we're glad you're here. Yes, the
That's a
American
part of
people-
investing in human capital, I think, is having that educational background that needs to be re-jump-started.
But if you can get more people in, you know, in leadership positions that are talking us up, then it'll
People might
work.
begin, you know, to understand and more gravitate towards it. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not hard to understand, and I agree with you. You know, I can definitely try, you know, given where I'm at, you know, to try and dumb it down a little bit, you know, try and get people, the layman's out there to grasp it, but, you know, it's tough because some of the stuff, you know, demands that you kind of have to be a little bit intricate, you know, this is intricate stuff, you know, finance, you know, this is totally complicated stuff, but I'm trying to make it as least complicated as possible.
Get it down to where it's affecting the video games, and it's affecting their choice of pizza toppings, and, you know, you'll have...
This is a teacher talking.
Yeah. But you're right, the ideological situation of America today is highly tragic.
That's the word, tragic.
It's very tragic, yeah, absolutely. We certainly aim to reverse that, absolutely.
But, you know, if you had people, local people in leadership positions that could help the local people understand it better, I mean,
You'll get them on board. Yeah, you'll be able to...
somebody that they could trust, you know, local people they trust and that could, you know, inform them on these types of things, because people just aren't talking about this kind of stuff.
They aren't, yeah. I mean, you hear on the news, you know, Ferguson riots, you know, cops this, cops that. You got all these different wedge issues that divide people and send people off into 500 different directions, 500 different camps. This kind of stuff is hardly talked about. It was kind of talked about in 2008 and 2009 when all this stuff was happening. But now that it's, you know, people have such short-term memories that now
You
they're
were
back to the
saying that
legends.
some of these things that you were talking about was enforced until 1977. What happened then?
What, in terms of the Wall Street sales tax?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my understanding that between the years of, I think, 1913 or 14 and 1966, we had a sales tax on speculation.
Okay.
And that was...
What stopped it?
I don't know.
I believe it was a political decision that it was either not enforced or it was just removed from the books. There still is a small marginal sales tax on Wall Street trading once the FDIC.
Yeah.
You need a microscope to see it, basically.
Yeah, very minute.
Well, there is one in New York City. There is, I can't remember the percentage. I think it's less than 1%. It's immediately refunded to the banks.
Yeah, there's a state sales tax on Wall Street turnover, but yeah, the state sends it back. You know, they give it back to Wall Street because the Wall Street banks, you know, try and blackmail the state and say, "Hey, boys, you know, we're going to move to Jersey if you tax us on our turnover, so give it back." Well, you know, I say call it bluff. You know.
Any other questions, suggestions?
Yeah, I'm open. This is the first presentation I've done, and we've done. I hope I got the message across clear, but it's definitely not perfect, but, you know, this is the best way out. You know, there's a lot of camps out there. There's a lot of different noise out there. There's a lot. And you need to be careful on what you're susceptible to.
And the idea eventually is to sort of, once we have some voice in more public opinion, to unite the different dispersed camps and different anti-war parties, the different reach out to libertarian parties and say there's economic demands that we can all agree on, much in the same way that Syriza has done in Greece, and then use that as the bulwark against the two major political parties.
Me and you used to be libertarian, you know?
To a large, maybe not in full name, but yes.
Yeah, you know. I used to be a Ron Paul, you know, libertarian person. And I found this, and I'm like, wow, you know, this is much more programmatic. We don't have to cut programs. You know, we can be a lot more, you know, sophisticated about this. This is a much better way to go, in my opinion.
I think if I had a suggestion, it would be that, and understanding this is your first presentation, and the presentation is certainly thorough, but I think along with it, if you could come up with some steps here's how we're going to do it. Because that's what, the question that was left in my mind throughout your presentation. Sounds great, but how are you going to do it?
What do you want me to do?
Yeah. Well, I'm not even worried about...
What can I do?
I'm not even thinking...
You know, what can we do as a, you know, just a
People have to take care. You have to understand. You can do all the stuff you're talking about just through non-participation. Wall Street don't make a killing if you don't have 401ks, if you're not doing E-Trade, if you're not supporting stuff like that. They don't have any power.
Right.
If people cared more for that instead of my retirement fund, I gotta have an IRA. I gotta have. You're paying Wall Street.
Right.
You're supporting evil, horrible people because of what? For cash. You know, how do you think they do what they do?
There are little things you can do. I'm certainly not asking, hey, go run for Congress. You know, that's big. That takes a lot of work, a lot of energy. You got to put whatever you're doing down, goals, family, well, not necessarily all family, but you know, you got to stop what you're doing to do that. It's hard to get people to do that. So, try and encapsulate this program to the best of your abilities, include it in your political agitation, post it on Facebook, post it on whatever, talk about it with people.
Do you have a Facebook page?
I do, yeah, we do.
Oh, cool.
The UFAA has a Facebook page. I'm not sure if that's
Maybe
Wall
give
Street.
I am not certain that Tax Wall Street has a Facebook page because I'm primarily certain that the UFAA is the primary base for the account we have. Maybe the websites would be a good thing to give out. And if I could make just about how can you help individually, this is something I've picked up from Webster's The Economon actually. The idea is that you scan the horizon of the world situation, the economics, the war situation. You then scan yourself for your own abilities and skills, and you find a point at which, somewhat like a pressure point behind the ears on the Vulcan neck roof, that you can apply pressure to turn the situation around. So, myself, I have access to camera equipment. Eric has access to his economic studies and his own associate's degree in that kind of regard. He can give a lecture, I can record it. Something as small as that can help out. If you're a writer, you can write an article, such as Brandon has done for us. Using your unique skills and applying them to the world situation is actually very beneficial. It's a judo move, is how Webster is describing it. You don't use your own force and your punch, but you use your opponent's weight, and you find a fulcrum and you move them all that.
And me and you are going to get together next week, hopefully, and do some recording. We're going to write a song and, you know, try and encapsulate some of these demands within the song, put that up on YouTube, and hopefully that'll create some awareness. That's another thing.
You still have to know what to do about Congress. Seriously. Because Congress is not a voice of the people, it's a voice of Wall Street and corporations. And until that changes, you know, Lewis Black is a funny comedian, you know, he's probably my age. He said if we could just get Congress to build a float, you know, something, because Congress does absolutely nothing. And they stand in the way of everything that's happening there. They are the barrier to all good things. And so, you know, we've got to come up with some ideas of what to do about them.
Sure. Well, one thing Webster agitates for, and this is, you know, probably impractical too, but this can be done with executive order too. Now, obviously, Obama's probably not going to do any of this stuff, but in terms of nationalizing the Fed, it can be done with a phone call. Get on the phone with Janet Yellen, Chairwoman of the Federal Reserve, say, Janet, we want you to open up a $4 to $5 trillion credit facility. We're going to build infrastructure. You're going to buy the bonds of states, and I forgot to tell you guys about this, in terms of how to fund the states. Buy the bonds of states going out 100 years, 0% interest, century bonds. We're going to fund infrastructure. Goodbye. That's literally how fast it could get going with an executive order. So you can bypass Congress altogether. Now, obviously, that is, you know, wishful thinking. But, nevertheless, that is an avenue that we could agitate for. In terms of Congress, yes, you're right. It's a big hurdle. A huge hurdle, yes.
Would it help? Is there anything you can do to make demands to Congress or to your people, your representatives? Like, if you decide to, if someone has energy or extra time, like, what would they say? Or how would they make a demand?
I've tried calling many different congressmen and congresswomen. Their staff members answer, and you basically tell them what you're agitating for, what your demands are, and they just sit there and listen and say, okay. And, you know, who knows if it makes it to the congressman? Who knows? But, you know, it probably doesn't. But, you know, it's always their staff members that pick up. And when I asked Bernie Sanders, his staff member, about the Fed, they just came back and said, oh, well, Bernie Sanders wants the Fed to focus on unemployment. Well, that doesn't really help much. Here's how you get them to focus on unemployment. So I tell them, and after I tell them, they just said, okay, Mr. Rhodes, thank you very much. Who knows how good it does, but I'm sure it does a very small, minute sum of good.
And that's one person calling, however. I mean, there is power in that one well-placed phone call, but public opinion takes on a really almost objective power if you can have multiple groups all consolidated around a single idea or a single platform in general of economic populism. That if you have a united front out on the sidewalk with a sign in front of your Capitol or your maybe state Capitol building and your congressman sees that, that might be more powerful than a single phone call can do. So uniting groups that might be distant otherwise, finding common ground is a much more powerful thing, in my opinion. We could always have maybe maybe a script to run through with a congressman on the phone, but the strength of one person, I think, is dwarfed by a larger scale movement of multiple different groups.
An item at a time. Letter writing campaign. In 1993, the FDA was determined to take over the health food industry and regulate it. There were more letters generated to Congress in 1993 on that one issue than any other issue in the history, and they could not do it. So it's you know, an issue at a time. It's an issue, and like I said, letter writing campaigns will have an effect, because you're right. When it comes to large numbers.
Yes.
On the issue,
you're right.
They will listen because they are afraid they won't get
voted. The American people can make changes like that. Notice in 2013 we stopped the war in Syria.
That's right.
The gas attack that they tried to use to get, you know, to blame Assad, and they tried to get us to go to war based on that. Well, guess what? 500 to 1 phone call said no, we don't want that war, and an immense amount of people called Congress and said no. We've had a decade of war, we're sick of your imperialist shenanigans, and we changed that. And by God, they're probably going to get Assad sometime, but we changed it then. And
so on that one issue, tax Wall Street, 1%, if you could get enough people understanding the money that would come from that, one issue, because you won't give them more than one, they're too tired, they don't want to listen to more than one, and get them to react to that, there might be some effect.
My feelings exactly, in terms of getting people to focus on the eye on the prize. You can't pick all of these different issues.
No.
You gotta stay with, you know, the eye on the prize. You know, you can't go in this avenue where you're gonna fight abortion or you're gonna fight illegal immigration and fight this and fight that, gay marriage, this. You got to go with this. And this
people still need to fight those issues.
Exactly. They deserve their day.
But for that, well, and they're important.
They're important, absolutely.
For starting that, I would say you would want them to focus on just that one thing.
That's why we need a mass movement. We need people to know about this and agitate for it a lot. And
tell people to put money in their pockets.
Absolutely.
Buy more pizza.
And once people hear this, you know, it's a no-brainer. We have no taxes on speculation, but a sales tax of 6 to 12% on everything else. That's a no-brainer. That's a popular mass traction tax program policy. That can get people agitated, and I absolutely agree. The American people have the power to make a change like that. If enough people do it, voice their agitations on it. Absolutely agree.
I think the American people have become so complacent because they feel like they can't do it. You know, we as an individual can't do it.
That's very true. We have been taught that we don't have power, we can't make changes. And by God, if we all believe that, yeah, we don't have power.
Right. But if somebody, like I said, a local leader started trying to help the people understand this, I think it would empower the people to know that they could make a change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you 110%, absolutely. We absolutely have power. You have power. I have power. We aren't taught that we have power, but we absolutely have power, and we can hoist that power on the various issues that we choose to hoist our energy on. This is absolutely indispensable.
If you could come up with a document, on this single issue,
Single leaflet.
a single leaflet on that one issue in layman's terms, I would circulate it to my store.
That little program we put in each other, in all the chairs, kind of encapsulates the 1%.
And this is actually available at the website, againstselfausterity.org.
I think I have one of these.
In a larger
like that.
form. It does detail each platform in probably more specified way than Eric's gone through it tonight. There's other documents that you can find on Against Self-Austerity, the UFAA website. We also have a sign-up sheet that we can place by the door as you're leaving. If you're interested in more information, please put your name and email down. We can get you documents specified to your store if you would like.
I think it should be a single document that is for all. I mean, whether it was my store or Forrest's store or whatever, it should be a single message. You pay taxes on everything. If you buy a gallon of milk, you've got to pay taxes. If you buy stock, you should pay taxes.
Yep.
I mean, is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do it on the nationalized Fed too. It's a little bit harder to encapsulate for people. Federal Reserve's kind of mysterious in many people's eyes, but you can do it with that too, because that's how you're gonna make things happen fast and en masse. All these different projects, all these different funding of infrastructure and various things.
Can we answer anything else for you?
You guys, I would like to thank you guys for coming. You people are not apathetic. You people are interested in the strategic, political situation of the day, and I commend you. You're here tonight. You're soaking up whatever you can. Something different, something outside the box, and I absolutely commend you for showing up today, and I hope to include this in your political agitation. So thank you for showing up. Like I said, we got a sign-up sheet here. If you wish to become an activist, you want to be an activist with us, we can put you in touch with the right people. By God, join us. We need you.
But you do have a website. Okay.
Yeah, I failed to put websites on here.
It's very faint, but it is there at the bottom.
Okay.
Solidarity.org is probably the best